Hey, Foilers. Ben and I need your help as we continue to work to grow it for God and increase the amount of listeners to the podcast. Here's what you can do to help. Head on over to our website, thetfhc.com, and be sure to sign up for the email newsletter. Doing so will make sure you get content as soon as it's available. Also, join us over at the Tinfoil Hat Club podcast page on Facebook, and be sure to follow, like, subscribe, and most importantly, share with everyone you think would enjoy the show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for being fantastic and for all the love and support. Now, back to the show. Hello and welcome to the Tinfoil Hat Club. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ben.
And I believe where we left last episode, you tied us beautifully into what we're going to talk about this week, which, if last week was the most cliched of all things we could talk about, this would be the second most cliched thing we could ever talk about, which would be Bigfoot.
That's right.
The foot. The squatch. So, as we were talking about that, and obviously you kind of had an interesting encounter, fairly close to here.
Yes. I'll just say it, Mechanicsburg.
Okay, there it is. I mean, you already gave away 74 and 70, so
yeah.
Or 74 and 75, rather.
Yeah. Mechanicsburg.
The drive-in in Mechanicsburg. So go flood the drive-in in Mechanicsburg with your business. I'm sure they won't be upset by that.
Yes.
But we have, I think the way that I view Bigfoot is similar to the alien thing, in that there has to be something.
Yeah.
Because there have been far too many credible people who have seen things, and we do typically have some kind of video or something along the lines that there has to be something going on, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, what is it? Where does it come from? I guess, is it real? Which I believe it to be real.
I do too.
I mean, you obviously had your own personal encounter. I've never had one. Who knows? We could have one here. Mechanicsburg ain't that far away.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of woods and a lot of critters around here to eat too.
Yeah.
So, you go back to the, what's the name of the famous video? I'm mind blanking right now.
Patterson. Yeah. Gimli.
Patterson-Gimli. Yeah. The Patterson-Gimli video, which if you don't know, that's the common name for the video from the 70s, which they were out there specifically to get this creature, like not to capture it, but to capture it on film.
Yeah.
And they didn't think that they were going to have a chance at doing it. And then lo and behold, they actually managed to get it. Because when you watch the whole film, there's quite a bit more film.
Oh, yeah.
And then that just kind of shows up for a quick little blip of time while they're out there looking for this thing, and it shows up. And it's just kind of oh, yeah, there it is. And then he just kind of walks away. And obviously the whole debate over time is it staged? Is it not?
Yeah. We stayed in the same county in California as that was filmed in.
Really?
Yeah. And that county is huge. I mean, yeah. Here we have little counties. Those counties are massive.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it Northern California?
Yeah, Northern California.
So much more remote.
Yes.
Everybody thinks when we think California, your brain instantly goes to San Francisco,
yeah.
LA, San Diego, or one of the big metropolis, and it's the vast majority of the state is pretty remote.
Yeah, it is. It was
very
mountains,
urban,
and then you have the redwoods.
Yeah.
So massive trees, mountains. I could see how something like that could live up there.
Yeah, because there's not going to be a lot of people around.
No, there wasn't.
There still really probably in a lot of instances is not. I mean, it's kind of fun because you can always take I always look at a map from space or whatever, and they look down. Ooh, Ben's smiling already. And you look down though, and you can see how far civilization has really moved, only to maybe Missouri line.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, it's very sparse.
That's
You have cities here and there, but it's pretty sparse after that.
Tom Petty, singing
Out of the grade wide open.
That's right.
The great Tom Petty. But yeah, as far as Bigfoot goes, I believe that video is probably authentic.
I do too.
I'm like, they could have dressed a dude up,
but when you go to like the special effects wasn't even that good at the time.
Or was it?
I don't know.
But for some random dudes, I don't think it was.
No, yeah.
Which I know we're smiling and alluding to like a faking of the moon landing, which had been back, 69, right?
Yeah.
So the technology was relatively possibly good enough around that time, which I'm not saying that we faked the moon landing. That's another show. Or am I saying that we faked the moon landing? Again, that's another show. Tune in for that one. We'll let you know. But I think a common person's not going to have this.
No.
The other thing, too, is it seems like anytime we're talking about Bigfoot or a giant or anything like this, there's an active effort to cover it up, not expose it by the government.
Yeah.
So why would the government would hand two dudes like technology to fake something like this?
That
seems.
I don't think they did. I think it was just happenstance that something happened and they were able to get it.
And they were now they did admit that they were trying to, because they had seen it before.
Yeah.
Which is probably pretty rare that you're able to have a double encounter. They seem, whatever they are, they seem very skittish of humans, which I can understand.
Yeah.
Like we kind of talked about that before too, where like, they try to avoid us, it seems like, clearly.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they probably have been hunted quite a bit. Someone somewhere at some point, an Indian people or somebody has probably killed one of these things.
Have you heard about I think it was in Arkansas where the Indian tribe fought the Bigfoots?
No.
Yeah. It would have been, I want to say 1800s, 1700s, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But the Indians, they were, the French said that they were big in stature and the chief was 8 feet tall.
The chief of obviously the
Indians.
Oh, the Indian chief
Yes.
was 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
Oh.
And,
well, that's a wrinkle.
And one of the Bigfoots just ripped him in half.
What?
Yeah. I can't remember the story, but it was
Wow.
I think it made the papers and everything.
Yeah, there's a ton of that stuff. Like when you go look at like some of the giant stuff too, like we've unearthed bones all over the place in America, and there's newspaper articles, all pictures and everything else.
Yeah.
But we try to act like it didn't happen.
So what about, why can't Bigfoot happen?
Like I said, for me, I wind up in the alien camp. I think there's far too many credible people who are not Looney Tunes, have seen things or have had experiences. Like, I don't think you're crazy and you had some kind of encounter.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't see the thing, but
I heard it.
yeah, like how many things could make that kind of noise, respond in that way with intelligence, and then move like that?
Yeah. And I just, things happen. We can't explain it.
Yeah.
We were in the moment. We should have had our phones out, but.
And you're in the dark.
Yeah.
So good luck anyway.
Yeah.
But now do you think it is a terrestrial creature, or do you think it is an interdimensional creature?
That I don't know. I would like to, I don't know. I've heard a lot of different things, but to hear it run away from us, it seems like if it could teleport or something, it would have.
Because of the distance. You said
Yes.
it would, because you got to think, I would think in a flat run.
Yeah.
Like I would think a mountain lion could probably outrun a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
At least it would be fairly close, right?
Yeah.
But you said this thing was moving at like incredible distances.
Yes.
And there's a lot of discussion and theory on that too out there. Like it can phase in and out of, like dimensionally phase in and out, because it also seems to just poof vanish. There's a lot of discussion too about them appearing in accordance with some kind of extraterrestrial event.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Which I don't know why that would be. Like, I don't know what would trigger that.
I looked into that. Maybe they're cousins.
Yo, cuz. I'm the silvery skinned, shorter, non-haired version. Cousin.
Yeah.
They don't appear to be alike at all.
No.
So did you see the one too, the guy? It's actually been a couple of years ago now, but it kind of finally just got big not too long ago. But the guy down in Tennessee that had the video, did you see this?
I don't. Maybe
he's
not.
pretty remote too, like fairly close to like a lake, I want to say. But there's not very many people that live out there. And he was in the backyard with his daughter, and the thing just like showed up in the tree line. And when you see it move, you're like, what is that? That's kind of freaky. And then you see its arm, and you can tell, like, whatever this thing is, it's not anything you should be seeing in the Tennessee woods.
Yeah.
And I don't think the guy faked it. I heard an interview with him. Shout out to Blurry Creatures. If you don't listen to that podcast, you should. You should listen to us first, but then you can go listen to Blurry Creatures after. But no, they did. They had an interview with the guy. It was really fascinating. And I don't think he faked it. You know, there's stuff to gain from it, but it just, with his, like, he was talking about how much of a pain it's been for him.
Oh yeah. You'd be scared
well, not just that, like because he was trying to get her in the house, you know, like his daughter in the house, because he's like, you're scared. But after that, like, once this gets out there and it hits the internet, you know, like, people are going to start coming to your house. And like, he was talking about how many random weirdos have come to his house now out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, that's unsettling. You don't want a bunch of weird people coming out to your house that you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like wanting to Bigfoot dig into stuff.
Yeah. You know, I liken the Bigfoot to the black bear, where everybody said, you know, they didn't believe that there was a black bear for the longest time.
Oh, I've never heard this.
Nobody ever seen one. Like, recently.
Yeah.
You know? And so they found one. They do exist. Because they're quiet and you don't really see them.
They avoid people.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is something else too where I was watching a nature show not too long ago, and it was some kind of really rare cougar that they didn't think existed anymore either. And then they had set up trail cams. They were like trying to find it.
Yeah.
And they found it. They got it on video, and they're like, oh, dude, here it is. Or like a cougar that they felt like maybe had gone extinct.
Yeah.
Like a specific species of cougar.
Yeah.
Or maybe some kind of snow leopard or something like that.
Yeah. They're like with the Tasmanian dog.
Oh, yeah.
They've have video of that now.
Oh, those supposedly extinct? The Tasmanian, like a little Tasmanian devil thing?
Well, it was a dog. It was or tiger was, I think, a thylacine.
Oh, yeah, Tasmanian tiger.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. And they supposedly the last one was in the 30s, and they recently found one out in the wild on video.
Yeah, and the Bible talks about like Leviathan and the behemoth.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if those are still floating around out there in the depths of the ocean. Like, you know, like you think of the story like Moby Dick and all that, and, you know, you have other kind of crazy stories of like these creatures probably either existed at one point, or still do.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of an interesting turning point, because really the only thing that the Bible has to say about any of this, and where we can go first, would be back to Genesis 6.
Yep.
So for everybody that hasn't listened to our first episode, you have homework now. You have to go back and listen to our first episode where we talk about the events in Genesis 6 and how all that ties together with this. And the verse reads like this. So this is Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal, and their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. Now, what you have from that, so you have this angelic encounter where you have angels mating with human women, producing these very large offspring, which Nephilim, I believe, actually means in Hebrew. It means giant. I mean, like in some certain translations, it just says giants, I think.
Yeah.
So no doubt about it, this is happening. Now, there's a lot of other argument out there that we're not going to get into, but there's only one correct interpretation, and I can take you to many other verses in the Bible to back that up, and I'm not going to do that. If you're a Bible scholar and you want to go on the opposite train of it means something else, come talk to me. That's fine. We'll have all the talk you want because it's wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sticking in and planting my flag on that one. But what you have from there is, this, as the story goes on, how this ties into Bigfoot. Because when you go read Genesis, and I did this at the class that I've been teaching last couple of weeks now. I did this the very first class. One of the things that is really interesting to you that when you read the account of creation and you go back and you look is how many times the phrase "like its kind" is repeated over and over and over and over again. And then Noah's command to bring all the animals into the ark, specifically like their kind.
Yep.
Now, why would we do that? And really the only thing that you can come from that, to come away from that, would be not only did we start to have, we obviously have genetic manipulation at this particular point because now we're not mixing humans anymore. We're mixing humans with angelic DNA. And then we talked about other clans or other types of Nephilim that were wiping each other out, where we probably had Nephilim having sex with women or Nephilim and Nephilim mating and making whatever that makes. So you have all of this genetically intermingling that's going on. But it definitely talks in very clearly in the extra biblical text about how they then also started to defile not just man, but the earth.
The creation.
And all of creation. And that's why God is so adamant about, to Noah, about bringing in only things like its kind, nothing that's been polluted genetically, onto the ark. I don't know, you read the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what else you could come from out of that reading, but it definitely makes a lot of sense. So now we have the flood wipes out the earth, because there's also arguments that it wasn't a global flood, it was a localized flood and yada, 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 but that does not hold water. We have too much evidence of a global flood.
Yeah.
To scientific evidence of a global flood and stories of a global flood to be localized for me. I don't think that fits. So you have God that wipes everything out, right? And starts over. And I would think that included in it, and it says very specifically that he's doing that to do that.
Yeah.
So you have these regular animals get released. And at some point, though, we know that we have Nephilim after the flood.
Yeah.
So the $1 million question is, how do you get Nephilim after the flood? Because it makes a lot of sense that a Bigfoot could be a byproduct of some kind of genetic manipulation that occurred after the flood.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where you plant your flag, where they come from, or are you not really sure?
That's where I've always thought.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
I've always thought they were some form of Nephilim, giant offspring, kind of type, because they do. They would have. Let's say we'll give them angelic powers. Because they can disappear, they can blend in. And I liken that to. Oh, I never thought about it like that. Like when you possibly entertaining angels, and then they just kind of disappear.
Mm-hmm. No, that's valid. I never even thought about that.
Where'd they go?
Which makes sense if you got the phasing in and out. Because really, with an angel, they have the ability to phase in and out of our dimension.
Yeah,
like in and out of our existence. Right. Yeah. I mean, clearly,
from the seen to the unseen. How's that?
Yeah. Right. Which, however, they manage to do that.
Yeah.
Now, I definitely think there's a spiritual realm. Well, there's no doubt about it. There's a spiritual realm. And I think it sits in kind of I don't know if a dimension is the best way to say it, but maybe that's the best way to say it, like a fourth dimension, if you want to think of it like this.
The fourth wall?
The fourth wall. What's that from?
Well, like TV shows and everything. You know how they like when they sit at the table, that's you only get three sides because we're the fourth wall.
Yeah,
and so when they look at us,
called breaking the fourth wall.
And when they look at the camera and talk, you know,
taboo. You don't break the fourth wall.
Yeah,
it's an interesting concept because, and I think that science has been doggedly trying to get in access to this other dimension for a long time.
CERN?
Yeah. I am. I'm very concerned. Oh, again. But I think this goes all the way back to the Nazis in World War II.
Yeah.
And I think who knows before then. I think that definitely before then. Because I think that they were just trying to do it through some kind of satanic or occult worship.
Yeah.
But definitely the Nazis during World War II seemed like they were getting into the occult pretty heavy to try to break into that stuff. And it's like a power hungry grab, really, to I mean, to get into that, because once when you're there, you're gonna lose. Yeah, I would think like their thinking on it would be like with the giants. It makes a lot of sense that they would go swoop in and they would take this thing out, like, you know, like we're gonna take it out of here and fly it off to who knows where. So we can dissect it and take it apart piece by piece, but definitely figure out how its DNA ticks so that we can literally make super soldiers or whatever million nefarious things that they come up with with it, right? And it's funny because, you know, you go back to previous episodes too, and you talk about how CIA, Hollywood, and all that, and you made the comment about, you know, super soldiers and all that.
Yeah.
Through like Marvel. And it makes perfect sense, right? Like you can see the tie-in there of like they're kind of playing it for entertainment value, but you know that's what we've done.
Oh yeah.
Like go look up DARPA.
Oh yeah.
You know, like DARPA is the Department of Defense, the scientific wing of the Department of Defense, and the things that they're working on that like you can know, like read about now that they let us know that they're working on. That's already terrifying enough. But imagine the stuff that they don't tell us.
I know.
And there's only like, the building is only like, there's only like a couple hundred people that work there, you know, on the books anyway.
Above ground.
Yeah. But like you go back to the COVID thing, and that's one of the things when I was digging into all that you find was, you know, in the Wuhan lab, Eco Health Alliance, who is Peter Daszak, he was the one that was out there doing the gain of function research. And yes, Mr. Fauci, we were doing gain of function research. You've perjured yourself on many a time, but I digress. We were, and he was the one that was doing it. And I mean, he's emailing back and forth, and eventually they came out, and one of the emails was like, yeah, it's their fault. They didn't tell us that they'd actually had success, you know, making this thing more lethal. Yeah. But when you dig into Eco Health Alliance more, you find that they had multiple contracts in the past with DARPA, and it's out there. You can read it. Like I have the documents saved. So the CIA hasn't killed us yet. I'm trying, Ben. I'm trying really hard. Technically, I said I have the documents, so you're off the hook. Congratulations. But they're out there on the internet for anybody to get, so I don't think they're going to worry about, you know, little Kyle. But, you know, it just goes to show you that clearly they're going to genetically monkey with anything.
Oh yeah,
they monkeyed with COVID. There's no doubt about it. Like they can't argue with it.
They do our food.
They do our food. They do our water.
Yeah,
right. And who knows what else? So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's totally whacked out. I don't know. It's interesting to think where they might have come from. So.
Oh, yeah. I think they're a non-lab created being. That makes they're natural. It's a natural. I believe they're a natural, like Not something happened and, they keep procreating, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, something had to occur, and it seems like to me the only thing that makes sense is something had to occur after the flood.
Yeah.
There was some kind of genetic manipulation that had to occur after the flood.
Yeah,
so how and why and who is the $1 million question. Because I have, that's something that I'm started to kind of dig into a little bit, because I think if you can answer the question of how did we get Nephilim after the flood, which is a tough question to answer, nobody's figured it out yet. The one thing that I have been able to dial into on that front that seems to be that path that I'm going to kind of dig into next is a lot of indications seem to point towards the Amorites. So this is Canaan's line fairly soon after we divided everything up and everybody starts going to take their own territory.
So it wasn't another incursion.
No, I don't know. It's kind of crazy because I was in the Ham camp for a long time too, like Ham's wife. But then I started thinking about it and I went back to like freshman or sophomore year biology, and I'm like, yeah, but in order to get a Nephilim, you have to typically, the way genetics works, at least with humans, is you have to have recessive traits on both parties in order to get something.
Or it's, we'll just say that God being a just God, leave it up to whatever happens without, in a perfect world, there would be nothing. Everybody that was born would be perfect.
Yeah.
But they're not.
No, I mean, obviously the whole plan of redemption was from the get-go because of the sin in the garden. There had to be an eventual redemption of some kind. The one thing that fits with, I don't know if I would say a second incursion, because to me that when you say that to me, that makes me think we had the same thing happen twice.
Yeah.
We had angels who sinned and who decided to do the same thing again, which sure don't make sense, because if I was an angel and I saw what happened the first time around, you and I've talked about this before, there is no way I am going for that twice.
Yeah.
That stove is hot and I am not going to touch it.
Yeah.
So the $1 million question would be, from all this, would be, where did they come from? How did we get a Nephilim again after? Something had to happen, right? Now, the only other thing that I could think of would be when you go back all the way to the sin in the garden, it's very clearly stated in there where it talks about offspring. Like, offspring of man is going to war against your offspring.
Yeah.
So did the devil get involved and make something?
I'm going to say this.
Go for it.
People will probably be like, no, I believe that Satan was the father of Cain.
Yeah, I think you've said that to me before.
Yeah.
Yeah, what makes you say that?
In one of the translations, it said that he looks like Adonai, or one of the sons of God, or something like that. But it didn't say that about Abel.
Interesting.
And so I think, can't remember. One of the translations said it was kind of like a little bit of serpent-like. And then Jesus said that you are a brood of vipers. You're like your father, Cain, a murderer.
Oh, you're like your father, the devil. He's been a murderer from the beginning. That line.
Yeah.
I just read that when I was putting stuff together for something I was doing. I forget what, but
so
yeah, he's been a murderer from the beginning, a liar and a murderer from the beginning, something like that. Yeah.
And why would God say, "I'm going to put enmity between your seed and her seed"?
Yeah,
See, these are questions I have, and then that's how my little mind works. So,
and this is why we started the podcast, because we know other people have these questions too, and
yeah,
we can all have these questions together, and you get to hear Kyle and Ben's theory on stuff.
And if you disagree with me, that's fine. If you agree with me, great.
Yeah, I think that I don't know how, because it nowhere does it say that the devil was involved in Cain's actions, but I definitely think that it was a win-win for the devil, because I think Satan knew that I have to stamp out mankind, because through mankind something is going to happen that is going to make the redemption plan happen.
Yeah. And also with the beguilement of Eve, in one of the words of beguilement means sexual.
Where's the term beguilement used?
One of the translations. I think it might even be used in Hebrews, or Paul might have said that. So just by going by that, or maybe Peter, or I'm totally off my rocker. That's what
Well, that's fun too, Ben.
I'm sticking with my guns.
You stick to your guns. Yeah, it's the whole exchange in the garden is very strangely worded. I've learned that a lot of the things in the Bible are not as figurative as what we tend to think. They're much more literal than what we read. I think the Bible is much more literal than what we probably give it credit for.
Yeah.
I read much less things that are kind of figurative the way that they're worded versus literal. But there's no doubt about it that Genesis, when we're talking about the sin in the garden, I mean, the minute you talk about a serpent, we're not talking about a serpent.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're talking about Satan. I don't think it was a serpent.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe they could have used that to describe how he looked.
Yeah, which is strange too, because it just feels like with Satan in general, it feels like there's something missing that we don't have.
Yeah.
Text-wise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you read the Book of Enoch or you read Jubilees, and it gives you these huge chunks of missing information that's not in the Bible. Because like, you know, when you read Genesis 6, I mean, we literally read in 4 verses, right? 5 verses. This monstrous, huge event that happens with sin and the creation of these entities. And in Genesis, it's just like, blip, blip, okay, we move on.
Yeah. And I think they said that that is the biggest, if you believe in evolution, evolutionary jump ever in our DNA, and it was by 7%.
From
Genesis 6.
Oh, really?
Because they got it at a timeline, and it's right when Genesis 6 happened.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they pull all that. That'd be an interesting thing to watch them go back and try to pull. But it seems to me the way I read everything is there was a very, very clear attempt to make sure everything that made it on the ark was pure.
Yeah.
Genetically unmonkeyed with. Bad term. Really bad term, actually, when you think about that. But untainted, perhaps would be the better way to put it.
Yeah.
And that would be Noah, and I would think that everybody's wife too. So I've drifted away from or even where I started, I think when you and I first talked, I've drifted away from the Ham's wife thing. And I think something had to happen after the flood that started this again. And it just fits to a T. Because if that is not the story of mankind, I don't know what is. We screw it up and God fixes it. And we screw it up the same way again, and God fixes it. And we screw it up the same way again, and God fixes it.
So you're saying it has to do something with the tablets that were found?
So that ties in somewhere, because why would we mention it if it didn't? But the other thing that's interesting to that is it specifically talks about the information that was on those tablets. And it has to, it all ties together somehow, and I just haven't figured out how yet. And I may never, but it'll be fun trying. But what you're talking about is in Jubilees.
Yeah.
And this is after the flood. We have started to repopulate the earth, and I believe this is Noah's grandson, and his name is Kainam. And he finds these watcher tablets, pre-flood watcher tablets. He finds them. And his father, who was Arphashad, I do believe, yes. His father was Arphashad, Arphaxad, however you want to pronounce it. Depends on which translation you're reading again. Whose father was not Ham. I want to say it was Japheth or Japheth, however you want to pronounce that. Finds these tablets, and his dad taught him to read and write. And so what the tablets had on them was advanced celestial information and knowledge. Now, another thing that has come up for me very much over and over and over again here recently, that I feel like God is dropping me little nuggets into this, would be the connection between that and Orion and Pleiades. Because everything, for the most part, that we have now that was built, the pyramids, all these different huge structures around the world that we have no idea how they were built, all celestially line up to something in the sky, and a lot of times it's Orion or the Pleiades or something like that. And it just seems to fit all together. And I think Orion even means giant, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So...
mighty hunter.
Right. Yeah, like Nimrod, right?
But he's headless, like Nimrod.
Which brings us to another interesting theory on how we could potentially get Bigfoot. And I know it seems like we drifted off there, but we really didn't, because this is all ties back into how do we get Bigfoot.
Yeah.
The other theory that I've seen out there, and this is even more interesting than you and I talked about before we started recording, is you could potentially tie this back into Genesis 25. And it goes to the story of Esau and Jacob. And the way that this reads is this, and it's a little bit longer, but I'll get through it quick because you need to understand the setup. So Genesis 25, verses 21 through 34. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two people from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau, which means hairy. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob, which is what that means. Grasps his heel. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me? I'm so famished I could die." But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. So now the interesting thing, just as a side note, which it wouldn't be an episode of the Tinfoil Hat Club if we didn't get sidetracked 50 times, You had said something, I think, previously where you read somewhere that he said he was about to die.
Yeah.
It kind of comes off the page like he's, like we've all done that before. I'm so hungry I could die. And he's being overly dramatic. But you said that he said that because, or somewhere you read along the way, because he had just killed Nimrod.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. So, do you remember where you read that?
I don't. One of the
80 million extra biblical texts that are out there.
Or it might have been Legend of the Jews or something.
Yeah. I always read it as it comes off the page if he's just being dismissive. Like, oh, I'm just starving. I'm starving to death, and he's not really. He's just famished and he wants stew and he doesn't.
Yeah.
He's not really thinking he's making this big commitment. He's just like, yeah, whatever, man. I want some stew. But it's interesting that it makes a specific point to say that he was covered with hair.
Yeah.
Now, what that makes me think is, I don't know the name of the condition, but we know we still have people that are like that today.
Yeah.
Where they have this genetic condition where they come out and they look like wolf people. I mean, they're completely covered in hair like a wolf. And so that's kind of an interesting theory so Esau goes, and she said there would be the way it reads, there'll be two nations, right? And so his nation was the Edomites, and the Edomites and the God's chosen people are not good friends.
No, they're
Let's
not.
just put it that way. They're one of the big clans that are constantly warring with
cousins.
The Israelites. Yeah, they're cousins. They're still trying to kill each other. But the Edomites do not wind up being good people. Now, the interesting thing would be in here, is this maybe where you start getting some kind of weird Bigfoot thing coming through here?
When you brought that up, I never thought about that. New
thing to ponder.
Yeah, it is. But it said a nation, but he did hunt. He was out in the land. It'd have been easy if he covered in hair, easy to hide while he was hunting.
Yeah. That's true. And warm.
Yeah.
Toasty warm.
And it did say God hated Esau.
God hated Esau?
God hated Esau.
Does it go on after that to say that?
I think there again, I think it might have been in the New Testament. Where it did say God hated, or you're looking it up right now.
Well, maybe.
We'll
see. Go ahead, keep talking.
And so, why would it say God hate? That's my question. Is it?
That's pretty strong.
And a lot of people say it was because of he sold his birthright or whatnot. I think there was more to it than we know.
Yeah, that's like I said. It just feels like with the Bible that we have, there are holes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are things where like we're not getting the whole picture. Yeah. And I know that some people might hear that and go, "Oh my gosh, that's so sacrilegious. How could you say that?" Well, I could say it because look at Genesis 6. That's all the evidence I'll ever need. We have this huge event that happens, and it's like a footnote.
Yeah.
And the reason it's a footnote, it's a cliff note, is what we would call it now. And the reason we have this cliff note is because why would I go into that?
Yeah,
like
everybody knew.
Yeah. When I'm Moses and I'm writing that, why would I bother? It's just like, it's kind of like saying, the new episode is this. Well, I'm just going to get you the catch me up. Here's what happened on the previous episodes of the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is some stuff in here. So like Romans 9:13, or Romans, let's just start it. Romans 9 verse 6. It is not as though God's word had failed, for not all who are descended from Israel are Israel, nor because they are his descendants are they all Abraham's children. On the contrary, and the rest of this is in quotes, it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. In other words, it's not the children by physical descent who are God's children, but it's the children of the promise who are regarded as Abraham's offspring. For this was how the promise was stated, and again in quotes, at the appointed time I will return, and Sarah will have a son. And then it kind of goes on, and it says, the older will serve the younger, which again is in Genesis 20:25 that we just read, just as it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated.
Yeah.
Which is Malachi 1, verses 2 and 3. And I have that here too. So let's go look. You didn't know you guys were getting Bible study this week, did you? It's good stuff. A prophecy, the word of the Lord to Israel through Malachi. And this is titled, Israel Doubts God's Love. I have loved you, says the Lord. But you ask, how have you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, declares the Lord? Yet I have loved Jacob, but Esau I have hated, and I have turned his hill country into a wasteland and left his inheritance to the desert jackals. Ouch.
Maybe they are.
Be interesting to see if hated is a good translation. One of the things that I've found as I've started digging into this, that was the NIV. Pull up the ESV. Yeah, it says hated there too. And this actually, the nice thing about the ESV, when you guys go look at like a Bible.com or your Bible app, I would encourage the ESV. Michael Heiser was a fan of the ESV. I like the ESV as well. But the other nice thing too is like when you look it up digitally, you get a ton of these little bubbles and it'll tie into previous texts and stuff, which is fantastic. Really good research tool to dig into stuff, because it's amazing to me as I've started to learn more and more how everything is very much a circular reference.
Oh yeah,
especially like Old Testament will circular reference Old Testament, but New Testament will circularly reference Old Testament.
Yeah,
in multiple places a lot of times. It's kind of fascinating how I was reading like some of the Psalms are like 2 Samuel is just like almost a repeat.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of times word for word of some of the Psalms. It's kind of fascinating, but I don't know. Is this maybe through the Edomites that we have Bigfoot, or the Nephilim perhaps? And it's an interesting question.
I mean, he said he would make them desolate.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously, and it's not just Esau, right? I'm like, obviously his people had to do stuff too.
Yeah.
That made them hated. And I am by no means an Old Testament scholar. I'm working on that, but it's going to take me a few years. Check back on my deathbed. But it's very clear that certain clans of the Old Testament were much more maligned than others.
Oh, yeah.
And the Amorites, for me, is my number one target for post-flood Nephilim activity.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You get into all those ites anyway, and they were just like riddled with all kinds of bad things.
Yeah.
I mean, just to put a generic term on it.
I wonder what ite means in Hebrew. I wonder if it means something like that.
People, because there was Israelites.
Well, that's true. Israel's people.
Yeah, maybe people. This has been.
It makes sense. I mean,
this has been doing definition. You don't want to. I am not Webster.
No, neither of us are Webster. And if you're looking for a Hebrew lesson, you've come to the wrong show. I can give you just enough to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to have your mind melted, go look up Bereshit. That'd be enough for you to understand how Hebrew works versus to English.
Yes.
Let's just say that Hebrew to English is really poor.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a good translational tool. So
no.
Yeah, not a good thing.
But maybe they are descendants from Esau.
They could be.
You know, I'm in the camp that they're probably some angelic being, the Nephilim, or an offspring of something, because they're strong, they're big.
Yeah.
They're definitely intelligent.
It's interesting the way that Genesis 6 is worded too, because you can kind of take it one of two ways, right?
Yeah.
It says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and then there's like a dash, and also afterward, dash, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. So you could take that and you could say that would be the second incursion that we're talking about, right? The way that you could read that. You could say that anytime this particular event happened, both before and after the flood, it produced these critters.
Yeah.
Or these Nephilim critters.
Yeah.
Nephilim.
Yeah, you could.
I don't necessarily I don't read it that way.
No.
But I'm definitely starting to gravitate more towards something happened. And it has to be something, I don't know. I just feel like there's something missing that we're not being, like, we don't get told along the way. And maybe we're not to know everything. But they were pretty doggone good at keeping notes. And I think that we haven't really done a great job of gathering all those notes together in one place.
No, maybe they were all at, what was it, the library that burned, you know?
No, I thought you were talking about the one here recently over in France.
No.
Library of Alexandria burned to the ground.
Yeah.
Probably so. Or they're in a Vatican vault.
Maybe.
My money's on Vatican vault.
Could be. That's where my money is too, because
most people's money's in the Vatican vault. Everybody's money's in the Vatican vault. Yeah. I don't know, man. For Bigfoot, I don't know. It seems like to me though, it is a byproduct of some kind of genetic manipulation, I would think.
Yes.
With a critter of some kind.
And it is definitely one of those things that you can sit and talk to hours about.
Oh yeah, you could spin your head up into a pretzel.
I do love. I'm a sucker for a good Bigfoot story.
Well, but there again, like, you know, you've got one. I wish I had. I mean, I don't know. I want to be careful what you wish for, right?
Oh yeah.
And we talked about Harry and Henderson's, but I'm not banking on he's going to be friendly that way.
Have you seen the documentary on Netflix about Bigfoot? No. But it didn't turn out to be. I don't want to give too much away, but it was like something worse than Bigfoot happening.
What is this called?
Is maybe Sasquatch or something like that.
Oh, I'll have to go watch this.
It's crazy. I mean, it's like Bigfoot gets the short of that story, and it's like it's a good documentary.
Yeah, there is so much history that we just don't know.
Yeah.
That is without a doubt. I don't care what camp you're in. I don't even care if you're a Christian or whatever. I mean, I care that I want you to be a Christian. That'd be fantastic for you. I would highly recommend it, especially for the eternity game. But whether you are or you're not, the one thing that I think we can all agree on is that there is so much that we just don't know.
Yeah.
We've been watching a show called Unearthed, which is also, I think, on that one might be on Amazon. Unbelievable show. Fantastic. And it goes into really all these different places around the world, like Machu Picchu and places like this. And it's so funny to me when I watch these shows because they're like, they're celestially aligned to Orion, the Pleiades, or whatever. And they perfectly have this little window that perfectly lines up on the solstices. And we just don't know how they knew that. And I'm like, it's because they had technology, man.
You know, in the big pyramid, you know, the little box, the one little hole that's in there, you know, it's the same dimensions as the Ark of the Covenant.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, isn't it like supposedly too the dimensions of the outer part of the pyramid are equal to, like, mathematically equal to supposedly the diameter of the Earth?
I think so.
And then like the same thing with the height of the pyramid, because the Earth isn't perfectly spherical according to what they say. It's more flat than that. Not flat all the way. Don't get excited, but sort of like squished.
And you know that there was supposedly 144,000 casing stones on the outside that were shiny of the pyramid.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Referencing the 144,000 in the Bible?
Yeah.
Well, you had said one time too, whether it was on one of our shows or you and I just talking, but
New Jerusalem coming down.
Well, no, there was a passage somewhere in the Bible where it talks about I have built my
monument.
My monument in the desert.
Oh, but in the middle of Egypt. And some translations say pyramid.
No, there you go. I mean, something happened.
Yeah.
But they're finding, there's pyramids like all over the world too.
Yeah.
And I don't know who all sees Bigfoot though. I think we have sightings all over the world for Bigfoot, right?
Yeah, we do.
I mean, they're mainly in the United States though.
And maybe the Andes and...
I mean, it would make sense. The thing with the pyramids though, they're like, how many pyramids are all around the world? I had no idea.
And even underwater.
Oh, that didn't surprise me either. That gets into the show I always talk about on here, which is the one with Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
Where that, again, it supports a global flood. And this stuff didn't always sit underwater at one point. It was above water.
Because we're still under curse.
Indeed we are. The earth is not what it was prior to the flood.
And we're still under the judgment. If there was no judgment, the water would be gone.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. And we still have stupid overseers that are screwing up the works. Thanks a lot there, Elohim. You just wanted to hear me say Elohim.
Yeah, I did. I did.
It's kind of funny too when you read about that. We are always talking about know who you are in the kingdom of God, right?
Yeah.
And it does talk about how we have been lowered for a time because, we're here in this sinful earthly junk heap.
Yeah, we are.
But ultimately our standing will be restored when we go to what you referred to as the New Jerusalem, which would be what you can read in Revelations, where our final home will be.
Yeah. It
seems pretty nice.
Yes, it does.
I'm just looking forward to that resurrected body because I know what it feels like now.
Yeah. I can't do the things I used to do.
No.
Like get down on the floor, get back up.
Like basic stuff. Like going to the bathroom. Nothing major.
No.
No, but it's kind of fun. I don't know. It's definitely, there are pieces of history missing.
Yeah. And going back to Bigfoot real quick, all the cast they have of the feet and things. That's, I don't know anybody that would go walking through the woods barefoot.
Yeah, and have feet that are like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless we let an NBA team out there roam around.
What is that? The metatarsal break in the foot? Have you heard about that? Where,
no.
Like, it actually hinges in the middle of the foot. There's a hinge in it.
Kind of like an orangutan would have? Or
it'd be like right about here where it actually bends. So they can actually see that. So they press down and they'll lift up their heel, but there's like a hard break in it as they're walking.
Oh, funky.
So
that's their springs.
Maybe how they move so quick.
Get off so fast. Boom.
Yeah.
I mean, what would make all that stuff out there? That's what I'm saying. Like, there's too much evidence for me to say, no, it's stupid. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what it is.
When I heard the noise or whatever the call, we'll say the Bigfoot call, that area, there is a lot of red and blue lights out there in the woods.
That are unnatural, you said.
Yeah, unnatural, yes.
Which is weird.
And they're not massive big. They're about the size of like just a little light. And they would be like all over the woods, red and blue. And they were distinct.
Like eyeball size?
Yeah, I would say about eyeball size.
Really?
Yeah.
How far off the ground are we talking?
It was varied from like low to high.
So do you think you were seeing like the eyeballs of these critters?
I haven't thought about that till right now, honestly. And it was crazy. I
mean, what would I don't know. I'm not a nature guy, so I don't know what would have red and blue eyes out there.
I have no idea.
Because it's a rural area,
yeah,
right? And sure, it's like around here. I'm like literally around my house, I get everything known to man.
It's about like around here. How would it? I mean,
coyote's eyes will kind of, depending on how you hit.
But I don't think a coyote would be 10 foot in a tree.
Well, if it is, it's a really springy one. It's not one I would want to monkey with. Let's just put it that way.
No, maybe dog man.
Dog. There you go. Yeah, like all this stuff, like the Mothman and all that. Like,
yeah,
it sure seems to me something's out there.
And with the whole Mothman, he was there before the bridge fell. Supposedly.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with this, and which if you're listening to this show, I would think you're familiar with a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
typically like West Virginia area, right? Is where
Yeah.
Mothman typically is. And a lot of times this entity, creature, whatever it is, will show up just prior to some kind of calamity.
Yeah.
Like there was a big bridge collapse. Was that the 70s?
The late 60s.
Late
early
60s, something like that. Was there, but there's been other things too.
Yeah.
Where this critter will supposedly show up. Like people be driving and this thing will start to fly with the car.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But again, like I think a lot of people go, well, it's a demon. That doesn't make sense because
No.
A demon is a dead Nephilim.
Yeah.
And it has to, it's a disembodied spirit of a dead Nephilim.
Yeah.
Hence, it doesn't have a body. It has to have a body.
It needs to occupy a body.
It needs to occupy a body, which is what you see, and that makes a lot of sense, right? When you see like the story of Christ and he goes over to get this evil spirit out of a guy, and it's like we're legion, meaning we're more than one.
Yeah.
And it's like cast us into the pigs.
Yeah.
And then they cast them into the pigs and they go run off a cliff, I think.
And drowned, and it doesn't say where the demons go.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you think that if they want a body, maybe they couldn't control the pig.
Maybe they were looking for a shark. Baby shark.
I'm going to upgrade from a pig to a shark.
Yeah. Well,
whoever made that song's a demon. I know that.
Well, let's entertain this thought for a moment.
Let's do this.
Okay, demons, they get cast out, they die, they go in the water. They get into a flesh eater. Demons have to live off blood.
Mm-hmm. Seems to be.
So that when they be eating other things, and then, let's just like, quote unquote, the circle of life, if you will, find something else to inhabit, then just keep moving.
Mm. I just had something come to mind. One of my favorite movies is a movie called The Ghost in the Darkness.
Oh, that is an awesome movie.
You like that movie?
Yeah.
So for those of you not familiar, this is Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas, and it's based, I think, fairly loosely, but not maybe too loosely, on a true story of a railroad being built in Africa back in the 1800s, I do believe. And both Michael Douglas's character and Val Kilmer's character were real life people. But what it is while they're building this railroad in a little place called Savo, which is fun. Go look up the meaning of Savo. There are two lions that are stalking the work camp, and they wind up killing I don't know how many people,
a lot.
Dozens of guys. Incidentally, the lions are in Chicago.
Yep.
In the Field Museum. You can go see the lions. Which every time I have been to Chicago to try to see these lions, it never happens. I never wind up going to the Field Museum.
They don't have manes either, do they?
No, they are maneless lions. They look like what we would think a lioness looks like, but they're maneless. In the movie, they go Hollywood, of course. They have big fluffy manes, and I'm sure there's a lot of Hollywood in that movie. But yeah, that's a true story. They literally ate I don't know how many people, but it makes me think I wonder if they were demon possessed.
Well, didn't they even hint like that?
Yeah, I kind of think so. They bring in a tribe called the Maasai, which is a real tribe that are lion hunters, pretty bad dudes. And the Maasai get one interaction with these lions, and they're like, nope, we're out of here because they're not lions. They're demons.
Yeah.
It's on you. You all figured it out.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is, but they do say that in the movie.
Yeah, they do. What? And, when you just brought that up, I'm an Old Testament guy.
I'm glad because I'm a New Testament guy, man. We work well together.
I was just thinking about this in the Leviticus of the law. If an animal kills something, it has to be killed.
Oh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. They're thinking it may be possessed by a demon.
Yeah.
Man, how do you kill it and not have it possess you?
Yeah.
I think the way to do that is, I don't think you and I... Do you think you and I are... Do you think we are able to be possessed, you and I, as Christians?
I think we can be depressed or oppressed.
What do you mean by that?
Not fully possessed.
Yeah.
But things
Nip at you.
Yes. If how to word this, we can let life get us, and they can use that as a tool.
Oh, I definitely think that.
You know,
I definitely think that.
And they can attack our psyche. Mainly, it starts with the mind.
I agree. Yeah, because you like we've talked before. I think about maybe I think it was you and I talked kind of off the air about people we've encountered that I call it the Psycho Olympics. This is terrible. But, you know, you kind of have the 3 levels of psychosis, which would be narcissism would be the bronze, and then a sociopath would be silver, and then a psychopath, a pure psychopath, would be gold.
Yeah.
And the thing that they all 3 have in common is they are literally missing DNA. And I think those people are very open and susceptible to demon possession.
Yeah, could be.
And I say that because it makes sense with what you just said about how it starts in the mind.
Yeah. I mean,
and if you're monkeying with the occult stuff, I'm like, your brain's completely open to it.
Yeah.
You're playing with a Ouija board. What are you doing right there? You've just took your brain and opened it right up.
Yeah.
You know, necromancy, things like that. I mean, it talks about this stuff in the Bible.
Yeah.
And says, don't do it.
Yeah.
And the reason it says don't do it is because it wouldn't say don't do it if it wasn't a thing, right?
Yeah.
So clearly, I mean, you can. Now, I want to say this too. Just because if you claim to be a Christian, that don't mean nothing, because you have to be an actual practicing, you know, faithful, strong Christian.
Have to have a relationship with Christ.
Yeah, you have to actually have a relationship with Christ in order to, you know, be of any service, of any use. And if you're just thinking, oh, I'm a Christian because when I was 12, you know, I said the magic prayer and I got and somebody put my head under the water and I'm good forever. No, you're open for demon possession too if you're just doing whatever you want to do.
I will say, I know we harp on Catholics a lot, but they do have a very good, they try to make sure that you are pure. Because Maria's uncle, he was joining the church, and he had to go through like an exorcism.
Yeah.
And, you know. Really? Oh, yeah. They
like they were exercising him?
Yeah, just to make sure there was nothing in there.
What?
Yeah.
I've never heard
if I remember right.
Wow.
And he kind of joked about it. You know, he was like, I had to go to an exercise class.
Yeah.
You know, and at least they take that side seriously.
Well, anytime we hear any stories, it's always the Catholics.
Yeah.
That's just like, hey, bad news for you. You know, like one of the things I'll give the Catholics at least some credit for, at least they believe in like what they would refer to as purgatory, which their interpretation of it, I don't agree with, but at least they're not completely denying the existence of Sheol. You know, the realm of the dead,
a holding area.
Yeah, like if anyone's like, "Oh, the realm of the dead isn't a real place," I want you to go right now, pull up that Bible app I just talked about, and I want you to go type in "realm of the dead" and see how many scriptures come up, how many verses come up in the Bible. If you count less than 50, I'll be shocked. It's kind of the thing. Christ talked about it too,
but you can't pay anybody to get out of there.
No, not going to happen. No, not going to happen. Not even the rich man could get out.
No.
He was there.
But yeah, I mean, and we had a small group and we were doing warfare about being possessed and things and how to do spiritual warfare. And that question came up, can Christians be possessed? And if you're in Christ, no. If you have Christ in you, because I was thinking about the story, you know, when Jesus says, you know, when the house is swept clean, that means nothing's in there. Mm-hmm. Not even Christ or God's in there, and it's swept clean. And the demon's gone, but he comes back with 7 of his friends, even worse state than he was before.
Just thought of that little lady from Poltergeist. This house is clean. Sorry.
That movie, I can't. That movie
Creepy, isn't it?
scared me when I'd cry. I remember I'd be over at my uncle's. My brothers and
I was
cousins.
going to say, because I know you weren't watching that at your folks' house.
They'd be watching it around Christmas time. I'd be crying. I was so scared. I was little when that came out.
It's a creepy show, man.
Yeah, I can't do scary.
It's creepy for sure. Yeah, because then you get into like evil spirits and demons, and there's all kinds of stuff. Now, I don't think Bigfoot is. I don't see him to be a negative entity. Like, I don't think that it's aggressive.
I think if you got close, he could probably.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean,
like any animal.
Yeah,
I think it's.
Is he an animal?
That's just the thing. I'm like, is he? I don't know. I would think so. It feels to me like an animal and a human hybrid. Yeah. Which, if that's the case, we kind of can run through what we've got before us in the Bible and say, well, then you don't really qualify for eternity. Sorry.
I don't know about that.
You don't think so?
Because in Mark, it says, go to all the world and all creatures.
Huh. Back I go to the Bible app.
And I believe if there is a heart of repentance, there is redemption.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh actually reads like he's not a bad dude.
Yeah.
So it makes you think that there were probably Nephilim that were like, man, this is not right. Like, I don't want to be a part of this. I mean, I don't know.
Some of them were confederate with Abraham.
The Nephilim?
Yeah.
What?
The offspring, I should say, the giants.
Wow, yeah. Well, and you said that, was it Solomon that was using them to work?
Build the temple. I think it's in the last chapter of Mark, last few verses.
Yeah, I'm skimming through here it's giving me all kinds of stuff. It's definitely an interesting question, though, and you could hurt your brain thinking about like where it could come from. It definitely seems like it can phase in and out of reality, or what our reality would be anyway. I can't find it. I'll have to dig later.
I think it's definitely. I want to say. It's a living entity, but I as far as maybe it does have some supernatural powers.
Well, you made a good point earlier that I've never thought about before, which is if it has some kind of angelic DNA in there, makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it like Jack from The Incredibles? It doesn't know how to control it yet.
Yeah.
It just kind of does all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Only on the Tinfoil Hat Club could you have Jack from The Incredibles get mixed in with Bigfoot.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I don't know. It's an interesting question. It definitely it seems to be hypersensitive to humans.
Yeah.
And it seems to want to avoid us at all costs.
Yeah. I'd want to avoid us at all costs too.
Hey, amen. That is for sure.
I was around like 30,000 people yesterday, and I was not happy.
Yeah, no. I am not. I'm not. Was that agoraphobic when you're afraid of crowds? Right?
Yeah,
I'm not agoraphobic, but I don't. I find that draining.
Yeah,
I find that draining.
Yeah,
especially when you're around that many people. The likelihood is, depending on the circumstance, of course, the likelihood is you are not going to be around other brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yeah.
Which, we're called into those environments to obviously be witnesses and be light, but man, it's tiring.
Yeah.
That's the scene. I remember the scene from The Chosen where Christ is so whipped after like a day with everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, I just want to go sleep, man. Now, Granny's been healing everybody. And
yeah.
Stuff, but
and he's like, just the look on his face. And I've never, I take that show for what it is. It's a show.
Yeah.
But when he just kind of looked and like he was just tired.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, he got tired.
Yeah. He's human.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine it. It would be kind of crazy. It's fun to think that someday we'll know all the answers to this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like how Christ fell, what actually happened when he went down. By the way, and again, maybe I'm setting us up beautifully for our next show because I know we talked upstairs. I was kind of digging into the whole Sheol thing, and I am of the camp, speaking of our watcher friends, which is who we're talking about when we talk about the angels in Genesis 6:4. I think that I am in the camp now that they are in the lake of fire. I think that they have had judgment passed. I think that's what Christ did. I can back that up with some scripture.
From the original, the fall, not like the ones that came down and with the married the women.
Yes, the watchers,
not the ones from Daniel.
No, that was the original war in heaven that occurred prior to this.
Yeah.
Part of Satan's entourage that he just tried to have rise up into his rebellion. No, I am talking specifically about the watchers that were placed in Tartarus from Genesis 6. I think that they are currently in the lake of fire.
That would be interesting.
I have found scripture to back that up. I'll have to show you some when we get off. Maybe that's next week's episode.
Maybe.
The where do we go when we die?
Oh. Can I tell a story?
Go, please do.
We're speaking of where do we
Dead
go?
on time. Look at that. Story time with Ben.
Where do we go when we die? This is a ghost story.
Okay.
So it has...
What is ghost too? That's an interesting question.
Yes.
Go ahead with your story.
It was before my wife and I were married. We were at her parents' house. And how the house was set up was like you could, from the bathroom, you could see the kitchen, the dining room, and then the living room. Mm-hmm. I closed the door to Maria's room to use the bathroom. Using the bathroom, I look from the kitchen. I see a ghost go by me. Full floating upper body, no legs.
What?
Dude.
How long ago is this? Yesterday.
No, this was a long time ago, over 20 years ago. I was scared.
Well, if you scared the pee out of you, at least you were in the spot to have it done.
Yes, it did. I was like, we're leaving.
Yeah, I'm out.
And so we drove around, went to Steak and Shake and stuff. And then time for me to go home. I drop her off. She said, "Are you going in there?" I was like, "Nope." She goes, "Well, what about me?" I said, "You're used to this stuff."
Floating around your house.
And yeah, and I never believed in ghosts up until that point. And I will say, before we started dating, there was a lot of Ouija board used in that house, and it was people already knew it was haunted before then.
So we're just throwing fire or gas on the fire.
Yes. And she could tell some stories. Her mom could tell some stories of that house. And that was like my first encounter with a ghost. And
it's freaky.
And is there life after death? Definitely.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
Now, do I believe it was a ghost? I believe because the disciples thought Jesus was a ghost.
Bingo. That's my argument for people who don't believe in ghosts right there.
Right there. Yeah. And so it was a full float, as the Ghostbusters was a full floating apparition. And we made eye contact.
So I've got a story.
Awesome.
Now, I was young, so I only have limited experience personally with this, but I know my family, the stories from my family. And this occurred in Michigan. I was born in Lansing. This occurred in the house in Michigan. It was a little bitty Cape Cod house. So it's 2 stories with a basement. And I mean, like, the whole house is probably not even 1,000 square feet, not including a basement. Basement was a full basement, but it was a creepy basement. The stairs to the basement kind of split the basement in half. And then you had to go down and you had to walk around to the back behind the stairs to pass through the other side.
Oh, yeah.
And when you did that, there was a gigantic black cutout bomb shelter hole in the wall. So you had to walk by this black hole in the wall to get to the other side of the basement where the washer and dryer was. So as the story goes, my mother, who was very gifted in the realm of, how would I even phrase this? Foresight. I don't know. Prophecy. I don't know if you would say that. She did some stuff with my father one time as far as reading his mind from across the room that freaked me out enough where I had to leave. This was after we moved here, so I was a little older. I mean, I put them on opposite sides of the room, and we started between a number of 1 and 10, and she got that. Okay, well, there's a 10% chance you're going to get that right. And then we went to 1 in 50, and she got that. And then we went to 1 in 100, and she got that. And then we went to 1 in 1,000, and she got that. And by the time we got to 1 in 1,000, I made sure that they were on opposite sides of the room. There was no way he was signaling to her. There was no way, right? Unless they had run this game before, which I had never seen in my entire life. Okay. So my mother was kind of freaky for that stuff. She would call you too, like would sense when something was wrong in your life and would call you. So she's gifted. And I say that because it ties into the story. So we're living in this house. My father is working in New York, and he's only commuting home like maybe once a weekend a month, something like that. And her bedroom was upstairs in the second floor. There was only room for 2 bedrooms. There was the master bedroom, which is kind of funny to call it a master bedroom because it was so small. And then there was my bedroom across the hall. And then there was a little half bath up there. And she started noticing at night sounds coming from the basement that were strange. She couldn't figure out. And then the sounds started moving up to the first floor over time, and cabinets being open and shut, a lot of banging going on, weird stuff. She starts telling my father this, and he's like, yeah, whatever. It's, you're just hearing stuff. He explains it away. And then things start to move upstairs, and outside of her bedroom, there was like a street light kind of style light out there. And so the light would shine in. And she said that she finally started to see this thing, whatever it was, the silhouette of it anyway. And she said when it would stand in front of the window, she could really get a good glimpse of what the silhouette looked like. And she said it had beautiful, like what she would think an angel would look like, wings and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then when you got to its face, you could tell that it was like horribly mangled and disfigured in some way. Like she couldn't really make it out, but she could see the silhouette, right?
Yeah.
And so she starts telling my dad more and more of this. She's like, no, I'm not crazy. Look, this is happening. And of course, he's still dismissing it, but he's like, okay, well, I'll go look at records and, see if the whole cliched stuff, like, is it on a burial ground or did somebody die in the house? None of this stuff shows up. Nothing. And then he's home one weekend and he's hearing it. And it actually comes into the bedroom and sits at the end of the bed, and the bed sinks between them. After that, he was a believer. So he starts really looking into this, and he can't find anything, okay? And it's getting really freaky, okay? And they had noticed that my brother, who was sleeping downstairs in one of the bedrooms downstairs, was starting to kind of act a little abnormal. Now I'm little, and I'm across the hall, and I don't remember any of this. I've only had 2 freaky things happen to me, and I'll share those in a second. So they sit my brother down, and they say, hey, honey, have you been noticing that there's any strange sounds at night? and noticed anything strange. And he is just kind of like, he turns pasty white, and he just is kind of staring off, and his eyes get big, but he won't answer. And they're like, it's okay. You can talk to us. And, have you noticed anything strange or seen anything strange? And he goes, oh, you mean it?
Oh.
And he said, yes, sometimes it comes in my room and hovers over me and grabs me and says it wants to kill me.
Oh, man.
Right? So he got promptly moved. I remember this from when I was a kid. He got moved into my bedroom, and I was like, why is he in my bedroom? This is my bedroom. What are you doing putting him in here with me? And that's why. And I didn't know that at the time. I found out later. And so this continues to go on. And I remember one of the two things that happened when my experiences. Now, chalk this up to what you will. I remember taking a nap one day because I was literally young enough where I wasn't going to school yet even.
Okay.
And I take a nap, and I remember when I wake up, I am covered in wasps, and the entire room is filled with wasps.
Oh, man.
It's the only place in the house. They didn't sting me, didn't hurt me, and they get the wasps cleared out, and it never happened again. So weird thing number one, chalk that up to what you want. Weird thing number two that I experienced. I went downstairs. I was the first one up one morning, and I went downstairs. And when you go downstairs and you kind of come off from the stairs, it was an enclosed stairwell. So you open the door and you're in the front room. And literally, not only in the front room, but immediately to your left is the front door. And I remember hearing this voice very clearly saying something. I don't remember what it said, but I'm like, oh, somebody must already be up. I remember thinking somebody must already be up. And I started calling for people, and nobody was answering me because nobody was up yet. And then I started thinking, well, I must have heard somebody outside on the street. And I opened the door and I look, and there's nobody. So whatever that was.
Wow.
Was that. Now, here's a funny story that ties into this. My parents had friends like passing through town, and they decided to stay at our house for a couple nights. Well, they've already moved my brother upstairs, so the only bedroom left is the one downstairs.
Uh-huh.
And so they sleep downstairs one night. And in the next morning, my parents are like, how did you sleep? Is everything okay? And the guy's like, yeah, I slept great. And then I guess the woman had experiences all night long that were freaking her out. She literally went out that night, because they were staying 2 nights, I think, and got a ton of alcohol and got completely schnockered before she went to bed the second night. So she would be just out.
Wow.
But yeah, sold the house. They kind of tried to ask, the people who bought the house later if they noticed anything. And they're like, no, everything's fine. We haven't noticed anything. And that's it.
Did they ever check the bomb shelter?
Yeah, I'm sure my dad looked at everything and nothing. Who knows?
See,
I can tell you what I think. I think that my mother had strange abilities, gifts, and I think she was unwittingly acting as a medium. And it was you trying to communicate through her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have little echoes of that in me, which is strange. That ability. I have no idea how to use it, and I have no idea. It's very faint. I tell you, it happens the most with Adrian. I can pick things out of her mind, like fast, bang, and she'll look at me. Like we do it. We literally do that. I do that to her probably once a day, almost.
Yeah.
Like I'll pull, and it's sometimes it's really random, weird stuff.
Yeah.
That I'll just pluck out of her head. That is so obscure to the conversation, or, what are the odds of that?
Yeah, that's how it is with Maria.
Yeah.
I think she has
that ability.
Yeah. But she's very good with discernment.
Mm-hmm. That's Adrian.
And she's very good she can read somebody very well.
I can do that.
I
yeah.
And I think
I've been exposed to a lot of people too, though. Like a lot of good and bad.
I think those are gifts that we are to use, not like to make money or call the dead up or anything, but they are a gift of the discernment and just being able to sense someone's mood or what's bothering them.
Yeah, empathy.
Yes,
I think empathy is in that realm of gifting, and it clearly talks about these giftings in, was it Corinthians? I think?
Yes.
It talks about these different spiritual giftings, and I think everybody has certain spiritual giftings.
Yeah.
Just like people are athletic or people are artistic or people are mathematically gifted or whatever. It's the same thing with your spiritual gifts, whether you're a believer or not. I think you could, because I think some people use those spiritual gifts for the things that you just talked about, where they're using it to make money or evil purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Have we just arrived at what next week is going to be?
Maybe. Oh, I love this. Every week I say I just love this because you never know where we're going to go.
No, you don't.
Especially
we twisted and wound everywhere.
Bigfoot. He exists.
I got to say, yeah. I'm in the camp of yes.
I am too.
I think Bigfoot exists for sure.
Yeah.
Too much evidence, man. Too much evidence. What he is the magic question. I think if you can answer that Genesis 6:4 question, I think you're going to have a lot of things figured out.
Yeah.
Because I think we have a genetic, I think everything that happened before the flood happened after the flood.
Yes.
In some form or fashion. Same old sins. What'd you say? No new sins, just new ways to commit.
Committing the oldest sins in the newest ways.
There you go, right there. Well, it is that magic hour.
Wow.
Hour and a half to be specific.
Wow.
So, thus arrives the end of another Tinfoil Hat Club episode. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we will catch you next time on The Foil. God bless.
Bye.